categories and intellectual constructs for understanding how religion and American public life overlap and interact. There are many general themes in our civic rhetoric that suggest a sharp separation of church and state. We often adhere to that idea. America is a place where religion and politics, church and state are sharply separated. However, the closer we look at the data, at the actual history of how Americans have lived their lives and shaped our institutions, the closer we look at those things, we realize that this generalization does not actually hold. We have never really, in our American public life, achieved an absolute separation of religion and politics or church and state. Religious ideas have a way of seeping into our public life. If we try to live out our public life, on one hand, without reference to faith or religious values, on the other hand, it would be like trying to ignore the presence of a giant elephant that somehow settled into our living rooms. Religion has an inescapable presence in our lives, even though it may make us a bit uncomfortable to consider religion and politics together. This series will, of course, look at some of the legal issues that we think of most normally when we consider church and state. However, we'll also be interested in some of the cultural issues about the overall way that Americans live their lives in public. So again, our goal is to move from anecdotes and some episodes that we may have heard about in the media, moving from the episodes to more general principles and guidelines for thinking about church and state, religion, and politics. And I have to make this statement that there's no intention on my part to persuade you, the listener, of any of my particular judgments that I've put together over the years about this topic. My main goal is to expose you to the categories, to the ways that scholars and other observers have gathered over the years, and to put together something of a toolbox of concepts so that you can, in your own way, come to more systematic thinking about these issues. So my general approach here is to expose you to what people have said over the years, not to persuade you of my perspective. I'm very honest that my perspective is speaking as a Catholic priest who teaches this topic in an academic setting. I will do my best to be neutral to all religions with the great respect that religions deserve in our lives. I'll probably use the word church frequently because that's my own background coming from a church, but whenever I do use that term, I mean equally synagogues, mosques, temples, and other congregations, all of the religious groups who are represented in the American context. One more word by way of preface is simply to look at our series title and to make a couple of brief comments. Religion and American Public Life. By religion, many people mean by this term private affairs of the heart. But we also know that religion is not just private, that in history it's actually quite public. We tend to think that the meaning of the word religion is self-evident. But the more we think about the great range of religions in our country, we have to remember that it includes many groups that we often don't think of. Buddhists, Hindus, Jews, Muslims, members of the Mormon faith, the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints. All of these groups, some of which we don't think of very often, are part of religion in this country. Religion is a total way of life. Again, we might think of Christianity or Judaism, but it includes a number of religions that have different names that we don't hear very often, like the Baha'i faith or the Wicca faith as well. It raises the question, what is the essence of a given religion? Is it an abstract creed? Is it a philosophy? Is it the organizational practices, the congregations? Is that what makes a religion truly a faith community? There are many instances that are borderline. For example, the group called the Scientologists. Some people say that they are more of a philosophy than a religion. Other groups, like those who practice transcendental meditation or Zen practices in the Buddhist tradition, again, to some extent, borderline instances of whether we should consider them a religion or not. And we all know